My in-laws had recently settled into a stylish new apartment, embracing their newfound freedom. One morning, out of the blue, my father-in-law, Derek, lashed out at me. "Why didn't you see Eric off to work today? What's wrong with you?" he barked. I had been caught up with a work call and couldn't make it in time. I tried to explain, but my mother-in-law, Sloane, stood nearby with a smug, sarcastic grin. "You know, I've always said staying home isn't a real job. You're just a parasite," she sneered. Derek added his 2 cents. "I'm sure our son, who actually works outside the home, makes more than you. You should be supporting him more, not sitting around. You're a useless wife." The words stung, but I reached my breaking point. Why do my in-laws, who don't contribute to the household expenses, think they can treat me like this? I shot back. Sloane's expression shifted to shock when I said, "I can't respect my husband. I can't believe it. Someone who speaks like that isn't family," she gasped. "A stranger like you should leave." Derek quickly backed her up. "Exactly, we'll live here with our son. You should leave. We'll pay $300 rent." I was stunned. Wait, $300? What are they even talking about? But after being humiliated like that, I didn't care anymore. "Fine, I'll leave," I said flatly. My decision made, I was done. I'm Jenna Davis, a 30-year-old graphic designer who works from home and earns a solid income. My business is thriving. Eric, my husband, works in an office, and we've been married for 3 years. He helps with household chores when I ask, but he also often tells his male friends that it's a woman's job to handle the housework. "I let my wife deal with it," he says. I didn't realize how entitled he could be until after we got married. Before we moved into the apartment, we lived in a regular rental. Then one day, a water leak from the floor above damaged some of our furniture. After negotiating with the landlord, we were offered a small compensation, and it seemed like the right time to move. "Hey, Jenna, how about we move here?" Eric suggested one day, showing me a listing for a designer apartment near the station. The rent was $3,000, more than double the $1,200 we were paying before. "I'd rather save for our future kids," I said, hesitant. Eric, however, was persistent. "I've always dreamed of living in a place like this. If we combine our incomes, it won't be a problem. Plus, living in a stylish place might even motivate you more with your work, and if it gets too hard, we can always move again. Please, let's do it." I couldn't say no to him, so we signed the contract under his name, and I agreed to help with the payments. The apartment was stunning, and I felt more motivated with my work, but my concerns started to grow, especially with my in-laws becoming more involved in our lives. Derek, who had taken early retirement at 60, was home every day. Sloane had never worked a day in her life and spent her time as a full-time housewife. Our relationship had never been easy, but after we moved, it felt like the tension was growing. Just the other day, when Eric and I visited their apartment, they welcomed him with open arms, while I was barely acknowledged. "Eric, so glad you could make it. Come on in," they said, smiling, but not even bothering to look in my direction. "Hello, Father. Hello, Mother," I greeted them quietly, unsure of what to expect. "Oh, Jenna, you're here too?" Sloane remarked, her tone dripping with indifference. I stood awkwardly, trying to stay out of the way as she and Derek continued their interaction. Then Derek snapped, "Hey, make some snacks for the drinks." Even though it was still daytime, he acted as though we were hosting a party. I glanced at Sloane, who was too busy posing with Eric for social media photos to even acknowledge me. She was obsessed with her online presence, constantly posting pictures of luxury brands and accessories, despite living in a modest apartment. I later learned she was actually subscribed to a luxury rental service. Maybe Eric got his pretentious attitude from her. Reluctantly, I prepared some snacks for Derek. "What's this?" he scoffed. "It tastes too bland." Sloane overheard and smirked. "You really can't do anything right, can you?" Poor Eric, stuck with such a useless wife. Eric, sitting nearby, pretended not to hear. Since the beginning of our marriage, he had always tried to please his parents, and living closer to them hadn't improved things. I figured it was best to stay out of their drama as much as I could. A month later, just before our wedding anniversary, something unexpected happened. I had planned a small celebration at home and had bought ingredients to cook a special dinner for Eric. As we were about to toast, the door suddenly swung open. Derek and Sloane walked in, without even bothering to ring the bell. Father, Mother?" I stammered, completely taken aback. "Oh, we knew today was your anniversary. We thought we'd join the celebration," they said, grinning as though nothing was unusual. I couldn't believe my ears, but Eric, without missing a beat, invited them in. I was still processing the shock when I noticed the large bags they were carrying. "Father, Mother, what's going on, and what are those big bags?" I asked, thoroughly confused. Sloane looked around the apartment, admiring it. "Wow, this designer apartment is just stunning. Living here really is like a dream." Derek added, "Didn't Eric tell you? We're moving in. We've given up our old place. Our stuff will be here tomorrow. From now on, you'll be taking care of us, just like a good wife should." I turned to Eric in disbelief. "What?" I gasped. Eric hesitated before answering. Well, it was time for my parents to renew their lease, and since we have some extra rooms, I thought it made sense for us all to live together. Sloane shot me a look, her eyes narrowing. What's with that expression? Do you have a problem with us living here? She demanded. Yeah, what's the issue? Derek echoed, his voice just as sharp. And just like that, I found myself living with my in-laws. The days that followed felt like a constant battle. Derek barked orders at me, making me buy alcohol and do chores. Once, he even threw a pile of laundry at me. To him, I was nothing more than an unpaid servant. Meanwhile, Sloane posted photos of our home on social media, frequently helping herself to my clothes and shoes without asking. Whenever I tried to speak up, they'd belittle me. Exhausted, I finally confronted Eric. The way your parents treat me is awful, I complained, hoping he'd understand. Don't worry about it, Eric dismissed me casually, brushing off my concerns. Not only was I frustrated with my in-laws, but my resentment toward Eric was growing as well. He just didn't seem to take me seriously. Then, one day, Eric came home from work in the middle of the day, clearly irritated. What's wrong, Eric? I asked, sensing something was off. My company just told me I'd be transferred to an affiliated retail store, he muttered. A transfer? Isn't that a good opportunity? I asked, confused by his reaction. No, he grumbled, I'm not accepting it. I told them it must be some kind of joke. I was seething with anger when Eric, loosening his tie and slumping down onto the sofa, casually announced, So, I quit my job. What? I asked, completely stunned. How could you just quit? What about the rent? How are we supposed to pay for this place? Eric shrugged nonchalantly. You make nearly $10,000 a month, right? That should be more than enough to cover everything, living expenses, rent, all of it, he said, as if it were no big deal. Are you seriously saying this? I demanded, my voice rising in fury. And don't mention this to Dad and Mom, he added dismissively. I don't want them to worry, I'll find something new soon, so don't stress about it. I was livid, but at that moment, I couldn't just walk away from my unemployed husband. From that day on, I was left to shoulder the entire financial burden, covering the living expenses and rent for 4 people, all while still doing the housework. Eric would leave every morning dressed in a suit, making sure his parents didn't realize he had quit his job. At first, I thought he was looking for work, but days would go by without him returning home until late. One afternoon, I decided to follow him and discovered he had been spending his unemployment benefits at the casino. After a heated argument, he remained unfazed, only getting more smug and making sarcastic remarks about me being busy with my work. One morning, Eric sat arrogantly at the dining table, reading the newspaper while still in his suit. I had worked late the night before and was scrambling to get breakfast ready for him and my in-laws, who were slow to rise. As I was cleaning the dishes, my mother-in-law scowled. Jenna, this fried egg is too hard, she complained. I stopped what I was doing, confused. What? I made it the way I always do. My preference is for soft-boiled fried eggs. My father-in-law interjected harshly. Make it again, now. Before I could argue, my phone rang. A client was calling. I quickly answered it, and Eric, clearly annoyed that I was occupied, clicked his tongue and shot me a cold look before storming out, leaving his breakfast untouched. After I finished the call, I was met by my in-laws, standing with their arms crossed, their faces stern. Is there a problem? I asked, perplexed. You need to get your act together, my father-in-law said sharply. How could you not see your husband off to work this morning? I was on a work call, I replied, my voice hesitant but honest. Sloane scoffed. I've always said that working from home isn't real work. You're just a parasite, she sneered. Really? My father-in-law chimed in. Obviously, Eric's income from working outside is far more important. You should show him more respect. You're a useless wife. Respect Eric? I retorted, unable to keep my frustration in check. Eric quit his job on a whim and refuses to even look for a new one. And you two freeloaders think you can talk to me like this in my own house, without contributing a penny to the expenses? The silence in the room was heavy, and I could see the flush spreading across both of their faces. I can't believe you just said that, Sloane stammered. Someone who talks like that isn't family. A stranger should leave. That's right, Derek agreed, his voice rising. We'll be living with our son now. You should move out. We can pay about $300 for rent. I was speechless for a moment. $300? The rent here is $3,000. How can they be so out of touch? But the decision had already been made. I couldn't stay where I was being disrespected. Fine, I'll leave, I said calmly, ignoring their mocking expressions. I packed up my things and left, finding a bit of peace in a weekly apartment. A few weeks later, Eric began calling me nonstop. Reluctantly, I picked up. He wanted to meet and talk. I agreed, thinking it was time to face him. When I arrived at the restaurant, I was taken aback to see Eric had brought his parents along. Before I could ask what was going on, Eric jumped in. Jenna, what's this about wanting a divorce? He demanded. I won't accept it. You can't divorce me without my consent. I remained calm and replied, Oh, Did you see the divorce papers I sent? Eric's face went pale. My in-laws glared at me, their eyes filled with fury. Your parents have been harassing me every single day since they moved in, I said, my voice calm but unwavering, and you never listened to a single one of my concerns. His expression faltered, and for the first time, I saw a crack in his facade. You're divorcing me over this? Eric asked, disbelief in his voice. You can't just walk away, I won't agree to it. His parents looked stunned, but his mother quickly spoke up. Eric, why would you want to stay with someone like her? We've offered to pay $300 for rent, right? At that, I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. $300? That was for parking, I said, pulling the rent bill out of my bag. The actual rent is $3,000. The blood drained from their faces. $3,000? My mother-in-law gasped. Then how much have you been paying all this time? Everything, I said flatly. I've been covering all of it with my income, the same income you both called parasite money. We didn't know, my mother-in-law stammered, her eyes wide with disbelief. Eric, his head buried in his hands, looked up at me, desperation in his eyes. I'm sorry, Jenna, please come back. I can't live without you. I met his eyes with cold clarity. What about your parents? They don't seem sorry. Eric glanced at his parents, then turned back to me, his voice shaky. Apologize. His parents mumbled weak apologies, but they were hollow, and I had made up my mind. I'm not coming back. I want a divorce. I will never forgive any of you, and I don't want to see you again. Eric crumpled into tears as I stood up and walked away, leaving him and his trembling parents behind. I followed through with the divorce, hiring a lawyer to handle everything. I was awarded most of the assets as alimony, leaving Eric with next to nothing. Then, I exposed my in-laws' behavior on social media. My mother-in-law's account was quickly flooded with criticism, and she was forced to delete it. Without the $3,000 rent, they couldn't stay in their fancy apartment and were evicted. They moved into a rundown place, struggling to make ends meet. Eric found a new job, but it paid far less than his previous one, and he couldn't support his parents anymore. My father-in-law, once retired, had to take a factory job, while my mother-in-law, who had relied on social media for validation, grew reclusive and lost all motivation to leave the house. As for me, I found a beautiful designer apartment, perfect for someone living independently. Without the toxic cloud of that environment hanging over me, my work thrived, and I adopted a cat that I absolutely adore. Life is better now, it's flourishing, and I'm determined to build it on my own terms from this point forward.